Hello and welcome to Santos on Sports, along with my partner in crime, Mr. Chris Santos. I am Paul Santos. Again, welcome in. We're happy to have you looking in today. We'd like to thank our sponsors to begin with. John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. You can go to his website at johnseedlaw.com. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville. Citywide Glass with 3 locations to serve you in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton. And Scotty's Pub, located at 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. Chris, how are we doing today?
I'm well, Paul. It's going to be a great weekend. I'm a big U.S. Open fan for golf. And so first I want to say happy Father's Day to you before I forget, and to all the fathers out there
Yes, to you
who
too as
watch our
well.
show, which is obviously this weekend. So the first round has started out in the Los Angeles Country Club. So I was catching a little bit of that at school today as I finish up, and watched a little bit before I've gotten on the show here today.
How about that? Was it the Canadian Open where the guy made that shot that was like, 50 feet long or something like that?
It was actually 72 feet.
Wow.
He was a Canadian, and so the place really erupted when he won it on extra holes. So good for him and good for the country.
Well, let's talk a little bit about our teams in Boston here. And I know the seasons are now over and we really got to move on to other things, but I just want to tie up some loose ends over here,
Okay.
Okay, so basically the Bruins gagged and the Celtics gagged, okay? So the question is, who gagged more? So when I put that up, most people were saying, well, clearly it's the Bruins. Clearly, no, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's the Bruins. I think they both gagged. I think the Bruins gagged. They had that great regular season and all that, which really didn't mean anything. But I still say that the Celtics blew it more because I think that the Celtics had more talent than what they showed when they played. You look at Miami, and you pointed it out, right? When they played Miami, there were players there making shots at like 60%, right? 60% from 3. And you're like, defense, right? So as soon as somebody played defense and went down to 20%, guys who were scoring 25, 30 points that looked like heroes, they couldn't do anything because they were hustling, because they're playing defense. The thing that irritates me about the Celtics is this whole hero thing where, I'm all NBA and the other guy's all NBA and I'm the MVP of the All-Star team. Marcus Smart thinks he's better than he is, and Jaylen Brown and the other guy there, your boy Tatum, he says I'm one of the greatest in the world and all that. The Bruins didn't lose for that reason. The Bruins lost because their goaltender started giving up softies. You know that when Gretzky won the Cup, Grant Fuhr played out of his mind. When your team won the Stanley Cup, Marc-Andre Fleury played out of his mind. When the Bruins won the Cup, Tim Thomas played out of his mind. When the Canadians won, Ken Dryden played out of his mind. There always is a goaltender that plays well in the playoffs, and the Bruins didn't get it, and they didn't play defense either. Yeah, Bruce Cassidy's system might have been better and all that. Had they played defense and played that system, absolutely. Montgomery was more about putting up points, which doesn't work in the playoffs. I agree with all of that. But I still get back to the Celtics. It's not like the Bruins were like, I want to score the game-winning goal. No, I want to score the game-winning goal. They just gagged because they gagged, right? But the Celtics, the way they played against Miami and the way they could have played and how they fell behind 3-0, which they never really should have done, that team should have gone farther, could have gone farther, had the talent to go farther. And as a result, I think they blew it more than the Bruins did.
Well, listening to what you have to say, and I'm hoping people out there who are watching us want to call in and give us their thoughts, whether it was the Bruins or the Celtics. And as Paul just said, he has taken the Celtics who gagged more. And Paul, I am going with you.
Cool.
I am saying the Boston Celtics as well, and here is why. First, I had no high expectations for the Boston Bruins. They had lost the previous year in the first round of the playoffs. They had gotten a new coach. They were getting another year older. That means Bergeron, Krejci, another year older. They had gotten rid of Cassidy and now got in a new head coach. They had injuries to Marchand, hip surgeries, injuries to McAvoy. So there wasn't a lot of high expectations coming into this season, in my eyes, in the Boston Bruins. Now, that being said, what a tremendous regular season they had, and you can't take that away from them. They were very good. But to see that carry on and get all the way and win the Stanley Cup, I didn't have high expectations for that. For the Boston Celtics, I had high expectations. From what I saw the previous year to what I thought a year more of leadership, a year more of experience, I thought they were ready to take the next step and have a chance to win it at the end. Beat Atlanta, beat Philadelphia, and I still say they're a better team than Miami. I give Jimmy Butler all the credit, but the rest of them I can't give because I still think the Celtics as a team are better than them. Maybe the matchup just wasn't the way they wanted it to be, and Miami played over their heads compared to what they did, obviously, against Denver. But I think the Boston Celtics more than the Boston Bruins. I'm with you, Paul. Let's put it that way. We haven't been together a lot, but this one I am definitely with you. I had more high expectations for Boston from where they're coming from to what I thought was the next level, the next move. They're going to get there, make the Eastern Conference Finals, and hopefully win it this time. So a little more disappointed with them than I am with Boston because I didn't see that in them.
Well, thank you for Chris Da Silva making a comment. He says it's the Bruins. Well, what do you think? 774-762-6234. You get the two Santoses here on the same side on this one, saying that it's the Celtics more than the Bruins. You know, think about the sports too. You know, the sports are so different, right? When you see that Bruins regular season, I got to tell you, that was so inflated. It just didn't mean anything to me. I was watching that. I mentioned to you about the old 1971 Bobby Orr team. You know, I'm watching this team, and I'm like, they're getting every bounce. They're getting every lucky break. They're getting every penalty. Everything. It's just like an avalanche of just the Niagara Falls coming down the hill, and everything's going their way. And when the playoffs start, it's a whole different thing. Number one, so the different sport, where sometimes talent doesn't always win out, like a hot goalie can carry a team, stuff like that. Number two, I really didn't think the Bruins were that much better than some of these other teams. Now, a little bit better than Florida, maybe. But, you know, how about Carolina? How about Tampa Bay? How about Colorado? How about Vegas? You could even make a case for Pittsburgh as, you know, kind of there too. Maybe the Rangers when they added some players at the end there. So I always thought that the Bruins were just in a group of teams, in a pool of teams, 6, 7, 8 teams that could possibly win. Whereas the Celtics, you're right. I think the expectations, the talent that they have coming into their own, they should have gone farther. They should have gone to the finals.
I almost think the Bruins overachieved during that regular season, Paul. Yeah. It was really shocking to see so much. And then, you know, obviously what happens in the playoffs. And we're seeing it now in all the updates of all the injuries with Florida, with some of these other teams. Ekblad, broken foot, dislocated shoulder, still playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. Amazing. Kachuk would have went if he could with a broken sternum and what he had there. And he gutted it out even in what he could in Game 5. So, you know, it just takes so much in that playoffs. But for the Celtics, I just thought the talent was there. Did some offseason moves to get Brogdon to make them even better. So it was just a little disappointed that they did not make it over the hump, especially against Miami. You know, if you got to the finals and lost to Denver, I would have been more happy. But to lose to Miami, who I think maybe even Philadelphia could have been better than them, or Atlanta. I think they marched through. They had some things go their way. They got to hurt Giannis. They had some other guys hurt in Milwaukee. They took that one. You know, then they went to the Knicks, who, okay, they got Randall, but, you know, very inexperienced team. That's where I thought the Celtics would come through and use their experience over, besides Jimmy Butler, all the other players. And they just didn't do it defensively when they needed to.
All right, well, the Santos boys on this beautiful early summer day are a little grumpy here, a little irritated, you know, like we just want to see these teams go farther. And
we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
I know. So the question is, who choked more? Who gagged more? Who blew it more? Well, let's see what Nelson in Fall River thinks. Hello, you're on Santos on Sports.
Hello, guys. I want to say real quick before I get into my comments, this is the best sports talk show, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I enjoy the content very much.
Thank you. Very nice of you to say that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And is this conversation, this topic, only towards the Celtics, or can I divert to another sports topic that's currently playing out right now?
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, if you can just answer that question, like, who do you think blew it worse, the Bruins or the Celtics?
I would say the Bruins.
Okay. All right.
Because for the Bruins, they made history with the most wins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it reminds me of Golden State when they set the single season record for wins and they lost the finals.
Yeah, right.
So this just goes to show that in sports, it doesn't matter how you start; it matters how you finish.
I got to tell you, I never thought, and I think Chris just alluded to that. I never thought the Bruins were that good. You know what I mean? They were a good team, but the way that the season went, every bounce, every break, every bounce off the skate, everything just went their way. I just don't think they were as good as those numbers showed, and that really was a problem.
It did. It showed, and it's all about longevity. You got to finish strong, and any team can win, no matter what situation arises.
Now, did you want to bring up a different topic?
Yes. The Oakland A's, the fans in Oakland are pissed off,
right,
that their team is leaving, and rightfully so. I understand, but I don't think it's professional or a good look for that town to throw stuff on the field like that. I mean, it's one thing to protest from the crowd. That's understandable. You want to make sure everyone's safe. But to throw things onto the field it's not right. But in terms of business, they had to leave Oakland to go to Las Vegas because, look, Las Vegas is the next, sports town that's on the rise. The hockey team just won the Stanley Cup. Las Vegas has really invested in their town to make it more than just table games. And now you have football. Now you're going to have baseball. It's just, and everything else. You got hockey now.
All right, let me see what Chris thinks. You have to remind us about the Stanley Cup. I know you had to do that, but that's okay. But Chris, what do you think about Nelson's comment?
Well, listen, Nelson, and don't forget the Oakland A's are on a 7-game win streak, and yet people are still not happy with what's going on out there in Oakland. It's the reason why the Raiders left. It's going to be the reason why the A's leave, and it's just going to keep moving on. And other teams are starting to circulate. Just heard about the Arizona Coyotes in hockey. May go back to Hartford or Salt Lake City. So another team that may be on the move. A lot going on out there, and these guys can pay for it in a place like Vegas, where you can have so much credibility in fan support in what's out there, because everyone's out there all the time. It's probably a good move for them in the long run.
As far as throwing stuff on the field and all that, you never want to see that. But it happened in a hockey game, right, Chris? That Florida game, the Florida fans got upset, and all of a sudden they're having a fight in Kachuk and all that. Next thing you know, I see bottles and cans all flying on the and the old Boston Garden. They did that when they had the high balcony. When they got ticked, man, they threw all kinds of stuff. So you never want to see that. It's not. I don't think it's anything unique to Oakland or anything like that. But you're absolutely right, Nelson. You never want to see that.
No, and again, like, I think Vegas, if they keep on continuing, and that town has come a long way, and if anything, I think the fans should just appreciate the moment that they're still in town, root them on. I mean, who knows? I mean, can the Oakland A's make a huge run? Remains to be seen. But I think they should want what's best for the players and everything else. And
what's best is, Nelson, that people, free agents in baseball, will want to go to Vegas and play there instead of going out to Oakland and play there. And believe me, I've been there 5 or 6 times. I've seen the Golden Knights play, and I know it's a show. They put on a show. They got cheerleaders. Yes. They got bands. They got tremendous entertainment with 2 nights jousting on the ice during the first period intermission, things like that. The helmet comes down, the smoke comes out, all that stuff. Same thing with the Raiders. I've been to a Raiders game. They do it really, really nice. And people are going to sit back and say, this is why I'm glad they went to Vegas. And now we can be an Oakland A's Vegas fan as well.
Absolutely.
All right, Nelson. Hey, thank you very much for your kind words, and keep listening. And please call again. We're always happy to hear from you.
Anytime. You guys have a great day.
All right. Thank you very much. Nelson from Fall River, 774-762-6234. Give us a call. And he went with the Bruins, too.
Yeah, he went with the Bruins. So we got 2 Celtics and 1 Bruins.
Yeah, right. And some of the people that commented before we went on were kind of heavy with the Bruins. So,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. People, I think they they're misled by the fact that, all you heard on the media was, oh, that's the greatest season of all time, which I dispute, by the way, because there's all those extra points for overtime and all that. So again, I never thought they were that good. I thought they were good, but not that good.
Well, you're coming in with a first-year head coach. You're talking another year older for Bergeron, Marchand, Krejci. They had to get him to come back. And the only consistency, I think, was McAvoy and Pastrnak. And McAvoy was coming off surgery. And so was Marchand coming off surgery. And then, Paul, as you alluded to, what's winning championships? Goaltending. So now you're coming out and saying, wait a minute, what do we got here? Olmark? What has Olmark done in hockey playoffs? Nothing. So I wasn't really saying I think the Bruins can make this tremendous NHL season and win the President's Trophy and then win the Stanley Cup. I just didn't have that. But I had it when I thought of the Boston Celtics. I had it in
exactly.
Yes, I do. That's the difference to me.
Right. Before the playoffs started, we go back and look at the podcast. I was much more nervous about the Bruins and the Celtics for the reasons that we described. Hockey is just so much more, a puck off a skate and this kind of thing. And once things start not going your way, then you start to tighten up. And the Bruins never experienced that all year. They had no adversity. The Celtics, they had been to the finals. They came up just a hair short last year against a great team, Golden State, Steph Curry and all that. And you would think that would have been in the back of their mind, hey, we're not going to let that happen again. But once they get into these close games, you talk about that Tatum at the half, that just irritated me so much. That in that last game, Game 7, if people don't know what we're talking about, Game 7, Celtics got the ball with 24 seconds left. The shot clock was off, and Tatum just dribbled down. I went back and looked at it, by the way, after you mentioned that last time. He waved off 2 pick and rolls. I didn't realize that.
Not 1, 2. Paul, great analyst, great X's and O's.
Yeah. Hey, Horford tried to do one, and I don't remember if it was Brown that he waved off two pick and rolls, and then just did a step back clank off the rim. What?
And he was hurt. And he was hurt.
Yeah, and he was hurt. So come on, man. At least the Bruins, as much as they gagged in the playoffs, at least it wasn't there was some kind of I'm not passing the puck to you and I'm Mr. Hero. I just there's something about this team that irritates me, So I'll have to see what kind of changes.
and nothing against the Boston Bruins. As I continue to watch NHL playoffs, what I saw the most, and I thought the Bruins were exposed, was their softness in the forechecking, their softness in their own zone, where Florida just took it to them and they came out and hammered them, where Boston did not do that. And when you watch NHL playoffs, you've got to be tougher. You've got to be more physical. And those teams that went in there did a pretty good job to the Boston Bruins. And that's why they got beat, to tell you the truth, because they were soft as grapes. And you could see it. And that led to a lot of turnovers, and that really hurt them. And that's what Boston had done the year before, a lot during the regular season, even though they made the first round and got beat. But that really hurt them a lot. So they were exposed in that first round to the Panthers.
All right, Mike Concesio is watching today. Thank you very much, Mike. First of all, Mike says, great show, fellas. And then he says, Chris is the man.
Thanks, Mike.
There's only 2 of us here, so it's either A or B, so that's okay.
I beat out one person. I'm excited.
Yes, and he said it's the Celtics, so he agrees with us. And then Mike goes on to say they should have been better. They were there last year. Miami had weaknesses that the Celtics should have capitalized on, which is what you said. Now the future is shaky. At the end of the day, it's about winning. Now, do the Celtics want to pay over $600 million for these 2 stars?
Yep.
Who knows? But Mike Concesio says, you know what? Let's keep them. Don't break them up. Let's keep them and run it back one more year.
I kind of like it. And again, those are the 2 guys that I like. Unless, of course, Paul, there's pieces of the puzzles. And someone says to you, hey, I'll give you this, this, and this, and a couple of drafts for Brown, or this, and this for Tatum. And it just looks too good on paper and it looks too good for your team. Then you make that move. But if not, you keep those 2. You continue to build around them. They're still young guys. They're still the nucleus of this team, and hopefully get back to, an Eastern Conference final, and hopefully maybe again to get to what they want is the NBA trophy.
Yeah, I think things were looking so good for both the Bruins and the Celtics that I think, we kind of got, caught up in it a little bit. I would hear people talking like, oh yeah, people thought that the Bruins and the Celtics were both just going to go right to the finals.
Yeah.
I mean, people like, most people that are sports fans understand that a lot of things have to happen along the way, especially with hockey, which is so unpredictable. That's a long road, to
Yeah,
climb the way.
I thought that about the Celtics, but I definitely did not think about that about the Bruins. I really didn't, only because I as a coach, I know what playoff hockey is. I've been through playoff hockey. I'm telling you, people, it is a lot different than the regular season. I'm just going to say it like that.
Well, Michael Consaccio says the future is still bright for the Celtics. Well, I did have something that popped into my mind. I'm watching the Joker, and I'm thinking, oh man, I never get to watch this guy. This guy is nasty. And the other thing too, I like about him, you really listen to him after the game and the post game interview. Humble guy, kind of like Giannis too. Giannis is like that. And you notice something too. Both of them are from overseas. I don't think they appreciate America, or they appreciate America more than unfortunately our young stars that get in the AAU culture. Everybody tells them how great they are, and I don't know, it kind of affects them. So you hear a guy like like the Joker or Giannis or somebody like that, and you're like, wow, this guy's just so happy to be there and so happy to see their teammates do well. So there's all that. But I will say this too, the Joker, he's like 28 or something like that. And it took them a while to put it together, So again, you look at Tatum and Brown, they're still not quite. I mean, they put up a graphic how it took Steph Curry to like 27, 28 to win, and it took LeBron James the older to win. And so the Celtics still aren't at 28 yet. They're 25, 26. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's still just a little bit more maturing that needs to be done. I don't think I would blow it up. I don't think maybe Marcus Smart. I can't stand Marcus Smart. So you get rid of him, that would be all right with me. But Tatum and Brown, I don't know that I would split them up.
Yeah, and Horford's probably going to go. That's going to be one. And they got Gallinari. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with him, if he's actually going to play and get back on this team next year. So there's a piece that could probably help Boston along the way. So that would be nice to see. But, Paul, how about the NBA right now? Joker, Giannis, and even Doncic, 3 Europeans who are kind of dominating this league, in my opinion. Top 3 guys out there. Don't get me wrong, there's some other great guys, but the European guys are doing a pretty good job. And let's not forget about this young man over in France who's going to be the number 1 pick coming up too. So another guy, a European, that's going to come over and see what he can do in the NBA. They got it going on right now. So hopefully the Celtics can realize that it takes a little bit more than just trying to throw points and score threes to win a championship, because I just didn't think they had it defensively when they needed to, and they let games just slip away because I think they thought they could just outscore anybody.
Well, we got some comments here before we went on the air, one from Philip McDonald. And Philip McDonald said, same coin, different side egos and lack of steady basic fundamentals, lack of focus. I think he's talking about the Celtics, mental toughness as a team. Ian McAllister White reminds us, I think we know this already, that they both lost to the Florida teams.
Yep.
That's kind of strange how that happened. Both teams, basically the Sunrise team, the Florida Panthers are basically a Miami team. And Zach DaCosta said, not even close. Which team gagged more? The Bruins by 100 miles.
Wow.
Notorious playoff chokers.
Wow.
6 games, 7 losses at home since 2009. This is no team that loves losing big playoff home games more. There are no teams that love losing big playoff games more than the Bruins. So Zach DaCosta really let it rip.
Well, the Celtics lost some home games this year too in the playoffs, which I found very frustrating too, watching as a fan, to sit back and say, man, you got to defend your home court. And they struggle to do that. But, good teams win on the road, and that's how you become successful. And that's what, those two teams did to get to where they are. It's not easy for Denver to go to the Lakers and, and get against the Hollywood background of, what the Forum holds true for them, Staples Center. And so you sit back and go, oh, wow. Huh? But, yeah, they did a good job, as much as Miami did to the Celtics. But, yeah, he followed right along and know what the Bruins have been doing in the playoffs since their cup win in Vancouver, correct?
Yeah, 2011.
Okay, yeah, 11. Yeah. So he was done his homework. He knows what the Bruins have been doing in the playoffs.
That's the one where I bought tickets to Game 6, and the series was 2-2 when Game 5 occurred. And I was thinking they got to win Game 5. That way, when Game 6 comes, they're actually playing for the cup. And they actually get to see the cup come out, and they win the cup at the Garden. So of course they lose Game 5. So now Game 6 they can't win the cup. They won the game, but And then of course I was at the game. I don't want to give the list of games I was at. I was at the game against Chicago, when Chicago scored 2 goals in 17 seconds at the end of the game and they lost, and they brought the cup out. Then I was at the game last year when they brought the championship trophy out and handed it to Steph Curry, and Draymond Green kind of waved his hand at the Boston crowd and really loved that. And I was at the Game 7 the other day. So somebody says, as soon as I saw you there dancing with those other fans, they knew it was over already.
Paul, do you see a trend
Yes,
happening
I do.
with you?
I don't believe in that, though.
You see a trend happening, maybe that you shouldn't be going to these games?
Hey, by the way, I didn't know you went out to Vegas and saw all these games in Vegas. That's pretty good.
I have. I have been to Vegas. I have seen the Golden Knights play twice, and I've seen the Raiders play once. Took a tour of the Raiders Stadium at that time, which is called the Death Star. And so watch how it's a retractable field. They open up one end zone, and the field just retractables out, stays in the sun, and when they want it, they open back up and they retract it back in underneath. Very cool. And the Golden Knights, from what I saw,
right,
Paul, a band playing up top, they're drummers, they got a full band. They march in from 2 miles down the road, and you follow them in, and they have the cheerleaders, and they sit right next to you, and and they're waving things, and they put on shows during intermission and stuff. It's quite impressive. But
they had that celebrity introduction at the beginning there too.
But you expect that from Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what that's why you pay the bucks. Yeah, that's why you pay the bucks. But I give them a lot of credit. They went to the Oakland Raiders fans first and said to them, if anybody wants season tickets to the Las Vegas Raiders, you get first shot over the Las Vegas people. Once they went through all their season ticket holders, then they opened it up to people from Vegas and anybody else and said, okay, now it's your turn.
Wow, that's like a real home advantage. Like most of these arenas now, the home ice advantage, the home court advantage, especially in hockey, not so much in basketball. In hockey, they've really lost the home ice advantage because, when you compare like Chicago Stadium, Boston Garden, Montreal Forum, now they're all pretty much the same. But now you look at that Vegas, right? Boy, I was watching that game, that game when, Florida got eliminated. They blew them right out of the arena, and as soon as they fell behind, you could just feel this thundering crowd. And I'm looking at the faces of the Florida players. I'm like, these guys are toast. It was like a ball coming down the hill that you couldn't stop.
Yeah, the only thing I tried to figure out when I was there was how many people actually live there and are season ticket holders, or are these people coming, Paul?
Yeah,
as visitors to Las Vegas. And it's, hey, let's go to the game, So there's that kind of question. I don't have the stats on that.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I did, but I'm sure there's a lot of tourists who are going through Vegas and say, hey, let's catch a game because again, It's a show, it's entertainment. Never mind, it's the NHL.
Not really that far from California. If you're in California, you can shoot over to Las Vegas, make a trip out of it. By the way, was this like a boys' trip, or was this like you brought the family and broke away and went to a game or something like that?
One trip was actually a nationals for tennis. So there was 10 guys, and we played. But when we were eliminated or wherever we were, and we had time, we could do our own thing. And so I went to that one, and the second one is. I went with my father-in-law and a couple of brother-in-laws, and we all went together and went to that one and did the tour and nephews and things like that. So that was more of a family one. So a couple of good times.
Yeah, nice. I'm thinking Vegas, right? They have all the shows out. I mean, you could go out there, take in shows. You can, have great theater with, dinner theater and all that kind of stuff. And then, walk around the strip and all that, and then still take in like sporting events that a few years ago at the national level, the top leagues in the country, basketball, hockey, and now baseball coming. Now you can take in these top sports right there in Las Vegas, brand new. This is only in the last few years. So, wow, what a great addition to the city.
Yeah, it sure was. And I ended up going to the TPC Las Vegas to watch the golf tournament there.
Oh, right.
Took a day for that one. They have NASCAR if you want to watch, if you like NASCAR. They have the Las Vegas one.
I knew you were watching that golf, from Canada because, being the intellectual that I am, it's kind of hard to tell that I'm an intellectual, but, some of the stuff that I do, especially on the other show. But I like to watch 60 Minutes, so I watch 60 Minutes. So I always put on, I'm going to put on 60 Minutes. And when there's like the Masters or one of these golf tournaments, the golf tournament always, a lot of times will bleed into the 60 Minutes. So I put the thing on the other day and I'm watching this golf tournament. This I'm thinking, oh, Chris Santos must be watching this. My brother-in-law, Roger Brightman, must be watching this. And all of a sudden, this guy drains the shot from the other side of the. And then I'm thinking, I'm glad I put this on. This is great. That was I couldn't believe that shot. It was unbelievable. He said 72 feet. That was amazing.
72 feet. Yep. And he, again, a Canadian has not won the Canadian Open in 69 years. So that was like the big thing. And I'm sure they partied very heavily that night.
Yes.
After that win. So good job by Nick Taylor to win the Canadian Open. But Paul, the show's there. In fact, as you said, it's entertainment. So this is another one where you put your brand of NBA, NHL. Now, listen, I'm staying at Caesar's Palace and I go see Elton John. Or even when Celine Dion, I can go see them because they're there where I'm staying. But then you can always find something to do in Vegas because there's so many hotels, there's so many people, there's so many shows. Never mind now what you're going to get from Major League Baseball, the NHL, and obviously the NFL. So it's great to see. If you're a college fan, the running Rebels of UNLV.
Right. Well, you mentioned Elton John and some other people. Wasn't J-Lo out there for a while?
I don't remember that one. I know Rod Stewart was there for a little bit. They just at that place where I was staying, but everybody can, sit back and say, oh, okay, David Lee Roth is there and he's going to do this thing for 6 months worth, So they have that little home vacancy where they get excited and they stay for a little while. And they just do their every night gig and they're happy. So they're entertaining more people, more and more. It's just a great place to be. You just got to be watching the spending money.
Exactly. You don't want to lose too much in the casino. All right, 774-762-6234. If you have a thought on the question at hand, or even if you want to talk about something else as well. But we just wanted to put the finishing touches on the Bruins and the Celtics. I know that was a week ago, whatever. The Bruins feels like a long time ago, but it just didn't feel like it went the way it was supposed to, and it was disappointing. And the way the Bruins went out, and then you see Bruce Cassidy holding up the Stanley Cup. Oh, that's kind of like it's got to go up like Cam Neely's rear end.
Well, listen, Paul. I get all that, and I've talked to you about this.
Yes,
it's not to say that Cassidy was going to lead this Bruins team to win a Stanley Cup.
Exactly.
Now, again, could you think Cassidy would win the President's Cup, a President's Trophy, as this, or have the best record in the NHL as Montgomery just did? I don't know if I can do that. So it's tough to say. I understand where you're coming from. I understand to say, hey, they got rid of it. Now, you're talking about President's Cup's great. The trophy's awesome. But we're talking about the Stanley Cup, and that's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And a lot of guys want to say, well, the Bruins probably had a better chance of winning that under Cassidy because he's more of that hard-nosed kind of coach compared to maybe the softer, let the players rule the roost Montgomery style. I get that. And obviously he's making the Bruins look bad because Vegas said, hey, we have the pieces to the puzzle for this team. Now we need someone to lead them to win the Stanley Cup. And it didn't take long once the Bruins got rid of Cassidy for Vegas to say, he's our guy.
Right. It might not necessarily be that it was the wrong decision because sometimes, coaches, you need to they have like a shelf life. You know what I mean? So there's that. But I will say this in defense of Cassidy, right? Cassidy's style of play, that sort of like defensive, grind it out, defensive responsibility, that style of play is more conducive to the playoffs than this, we're going to run up, everybody's scoring 30 goals and we hire and you who, and we're scoring all these goals. But then in the playoffs, you really need to be built for the playoffs. And I think Cassidy is more of a built for the playoffs kind of guy. But we'll pick on up on that in just a moment.
Okay.
Chris Santos and I say it's the Celtics that gagged more. Okay, it's the Celtics that gagged more. Let's see what our next caller thinks. Ryan in Rochester, how you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going pretty good.
So I actually got to disagree with that take there. To answer the question, I would say that the Bruins were the bigger jokers because at the very least, going into it. Well, first of all, I had said going into it, I said that I had more faith in the Bruins than the Celtics because I thought the depth would have helped more. Well, that ended up being a cold take on my part. And at the very least, the Celtics actually got to the Eastern Conference Final as opposed to the Bruins being bounced in the first round. And you guys were talking about Cassidy before, but I texted you guys about it. I couldn't be more happy for him. And because when he was hired over there, I'd already been rooting for him because I thought he was still ousted for all the wrong reasons. And I've also said before that I've been kind of a closet Golden Knights fan ever since they impressed the hell out of me with that Stanley Cup run back in 2017, 2018 that they first came into the league.
Mm-hmm. I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So it was cool to see that combination work, and to see guys like Marchessault who had been absolutely dominant throughout the entire playoff run. Jack Eichel getting out of Buffalo finally wins the Stanley Cup. Aiden Hill was absolutely ridiculous, and I texted you guys that big old rant, saying not only do you oust a great coach in Cassidy, but then you have this great regular season just to blow a 3-1 lead in the playoffs. And, if we had been swept by the Florida Panthers, maybe I could say maybe we just got beat by a better team who was harder nosed in the playoffs. But you blew a 3-1 lead. You had the series on hand, but you just let it go completely by you. And then, of course, Cassidy goes and beats that very team to win the Stanley Cup. So it's just a bad look for the Bruins all around. I'm still pissed that they let him go.
Ryan, did when Cassidy left and Montgomery takes over and we saw all the movement of what was going on, could you actually expect, and then this is why I'm giving this theory, because I did not expect the Boston Bruins, after what had just happened, to actually have the best record in the NHL ever by the end of last season. By the end of the season, that they did that, and then obviously make that run to win a Stanley Cup. See, I'm looking at it from a whole perspective, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Now, I understand what you're saying. If you're saying from just the playoffs itself, then I would say yes, the Boston Bruins, because of what you said, how they did it. I just didn't have the high expectations of the Boston Bruins coming into this season to go and run on the run that they did to actually win that President's Trophy, and then from that, win the Stanley Cup. So I'm looking at it from the whole year perspective, and that's why I said the Celtics, because I expected that from Boston, from what I saw last year. They're not losing anything, gaining guys like Brogdon and some others to take that next step to say, yes, we can get back there, and yes, we can win it. And then losing to Miami, who I still think we're better on paper than Miami, but we just don't match up well with them. That's how I was looking at it. I don't know if Paul was. I think Paul might have been too, saying that. But if you're looking at it just from the playoff perspective, then I would probably have to say, yeah, I would go with the Bruins with that as well.
Yeah, I think it's just because, I just find it irritating. And I hate to use the word irritating again, because that's probably the third time I've said that. When you got guys up there that are more worried about being all NBA and, taking these stupid hero ball shots and waving off pick and rolls. And, they just weren't playing as a team when you needed to. I mean, the Bruins gagged, but it wasn't for lack of trying or because anybody was trying to be a hero, And so that's that. And then secondly, I've heard that argument too, like, well, the one team went farther than the other. Well, it all depends on who you played. So could you make the argument like if the Celtics had played the Heat in the first round, maybe they would have got knocked out for the first round. They played Atlanta, who sucked, and they still gave them a hard time. So again, I just think you got two all-stars on the team there, and I mean the Bruins have their share of great players, Pasternak running up points and all that. But it's just there's something about the Celtics, the way that they weren't playing as a team. They didn't seem to learn anything from last year, and that's the thing that's really got me upset with the Celtics.
And I think you guys both make fantastic points. Like, I'm with Chris. I certainly wasn't expecting the Bruins to have this fantastic regular season.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'll be honest. I didn't know who Jim Montgomery was because, I don't follow hockey as much as you guys might.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who Jim Montgomery was coming into it. All I could hope was that he could manage like a decent playoff team like this. And you talk about maybe if Cassidy's still here, maybe David Krejci doesn't come back, or maybe the players would be less inclined to come here because they think Cassidy is too tough. So there is a lot of variables in there, but I certainly wasn't expecting that at all. And I was I'm not going to say I was expecting the Celtics to go back to the finals because the whole Udoka situation kind of hanging over everybody, and of course this came to fruition, but I didn't think that Joe Mazzulla was going to be as good of a head coach as Udoka. But with the pieces that they had, I would have been more confident going into this season of them making it back to the finals.
Do you see this as a trend now, Ryan? Because let's talk about the Bruins and let's talk about the Celtics, where it looks like both teams, the players are running the show and not the coaching staffs. Is this a trend going on now in NBA and NHL? Or is this something that's just happening in Boston?
It's certainly a thing in the NBA. Like the players run the show throughout the entirety of the league. I feel like I'll be honest. I don't follow hockey as much as especially football. But so I couldn't exactly speak to other teams around the league that have being player driven. But the Bruins absolutely, definitely, for sure.
So you really enjoyed seeing Cassidy, go out there to Vegas, start winning, and then there he is holding up the Stanley Cup over his head, and you're thinking,
that's his closet team.
Boy, that really rubbing it right in the face of the black and gold. You really enjoyed that, Ryan, huh?
I did enjoy it, and obviously, I'll admit part of it is spite because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I still think Cassidy was ousted for the exact wrong reasons, but him going to Vegas, who again I was a fan of ever since that Cup run. They impressed me. Just first year an expansion team going to the Cup. It was just a cool story. Just to have those two things that I like come together like that and ultimately hold up a Stanley Cup. I thought it was cool, and I'll say it again. I thought Jack Eichel getting out of Buffalo and winning a Stanley Cup is a pretty cool story as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, while we have you on the line, any thoughts about the football season and the New England Patriots? I'm kind of looking at them. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I hope they do better. I mean, they got the offensive coordinator that they want, and
right.
Mac Jones seems to be doing better, and this and that. But I don't know. That's a tough Eastern Division there.
Oh, absolutely. And as of right now, I still think that it's good that the Patriots are going to finish last place. but it's going to be the most competitive last place you'll ever see because I honestly think, like especially, I'm not going to on any wood that could possibly be in this car. There's probably not going to be any. But I still don't think they're going to sign DeAndre Hopkins, even though they have had a 2-day visit already. We'll see how that goes. But with a new offensive coordinator in there, and hopefully the defense, getting back up to standard, this could be the most competitive that the AFC East has been ever, really, because Buffalo is still there despite the Stephon Diggs issues. Miami got a really good defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, probably my favorite in all of football. The Jets get Aaron Rodgers, so I think they're going to be a playoff team. And I think the Pats will be somewhat competitive. Probably not going to make it to the playoffs because how the rest of the division is stacking up. But if the offense gets back up to par, that could be the most competitive this division has been ever.
Finally, Ryan. Finally. It's taken 25 years for the AFC East to finally have some parity. I was so tired of seeing for 20 years Tom Brady be 6-0 before the season even started because he'd win 2 against Buffalo, 2 against the Jets, and 2 against Miami almost every year. Maybe now and then somebody would win 1 off him. But, I'll tell you, it's finally nice to see, and I hope you're right this year, that the 4 teams come out and there's a lot of parity going on that would be nice for the AFC East. And the Patriots, I believe, top 5 toughest schedule in the league. So not high expectations, Paul. Got to check that schedule out.
Got to be tough. Well, you make a good point. This opens up a whole nother can of worms, right? But I'm always hearing about, Belichick's the greatest coach of all time, and Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, okay? But the AFC East was a joke for 20 years. And a couple of times when it wasn't, Patriots lost a couple of times, and a couple of times when Baltimore was not in the division, but Baltimore had a good team a couple of times,
But,
so you got to wonder how many Super Bowls would the Patriots have won if the division was the way it is now.
Well, listen, now that's what you go by, Paul. So you go by the years that the Patriots had. Let's say those 20 years. How many times besides New England, an AFC East team made the playoffs? What can you say? Was Miami one of them? Was the Jets one of them? And obviously,
they all stunk.
It was Buffalo one of them. So you got to think maybe the Jets snuck in there once in a while in a playoff game. But other than that, I can't say that. Now you're going to look at some other teams. Let's say like this year was the Eagles and the Cowboys. They had both made it. I think Washington snuck in there too, or the Giants, whoever it was. So you had like 3 out of those 4 teams. You see how your division goes by obviously who's making playoffs and who's not.
So, Ryan, is it fair to say that, Belichick and Brady were lucky that for many, many years that division was weak? Not to take anything away from them. I know people are going to say I'm taking away from them, but they had some good fortune there, didn't they?
Oh, there's no question about that, and it certainly helped with the high seeding. But at the end of the day, they did get it done come playoff time against these the better teams. But absolutely, when it comes to the regular season, when it comes to playoff seeding, there's no question about that. It was awful. Aside from like 2 years of Rex Ryan and even early Josh Allen, even though he stunk, they made the playoffs like once.
Yeah. So listen, you have to play who's in front of you. You hope there's parity in the league. Whether it's the AFC or the NFC, and you just take advantage of what's given to you. And that's what New England did, and they did it better than anybody else. And so when you have that and you play that tough game, you're ready for it, while that team that you're finally going to face has been playing a lot of tough challenges. And New England stepped up when they needed to and won the big one. So, it's a dynasty that to me, I don't think, as long as I'm still on the face of the earth, probably will never happen again.
I just think that, I think Belichick's a little overrated. You know what I mean? That's just, I'm an attorney, right? So I got the evidence here. I'm looking at the evidence. Okay. When you have Tom Brady there, you're racking up Super Bowls. Okay. Tom Brady leaves, and now all of a sudden you suck. So how come you're not like still pretty good? How come you're not like in the play? You had that one playoff year, and then it's like, okay, we have a chance to get this wide receiver. Oh, we're not going to get him. Oh, we have a chance to get this defensive back. Well, we don't want to pay him. Oh, we have a guy like that Jackson who's making all kinds of interceptions. Well, he's asking for too much money. Oh, we got the offensive lineman who was a Pro Bowler, and we let him go. Like, what are you doing? Like all these decisions that he's been making since Brady left, they've all been lousy. If he was a new coach, Chris and I talked about this before. If 5 years ago Bill Belichick became a coach for the first time, he'd be fired by now. This has been 5 years of Cam Newton and N'Keal Harry. I mean, it's like one bad decision after another, in my view. Am I wrong?
No, his decisions as a general manager have sucked, to be honest, a good chunk of them.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think you got to factor that in. I know Chris is looking at me like, hey, you can't take.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I also understand that you've lost the best player in the league for 20 years is gone. Okay. To replace that, which is the most important position in football, is very difficult.
Yeah, but if you're the greatest coach of all time.
Okay, hold on. So that being said, you're not only losing Tom Brady, but you've also lost a Vrabel, a Ted Johnson, a Bruschi. You're losing a lot more than just Tom Brady along the way. And so that's kind of tough to sit back and say, well, can I get that next level or that next crop in that group to come back and take that place? And for 20 years, I thought he did a pretty good job of replacing some people who retired and other people jumped in there. But when you talk about the most important position in football, which is the quarterback, that is a lot to replace. in a guy in Tom Brady. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Bill is, what Paul's trying to predict out of him, but I think he's a good coach. Not a GM, as Ryan would say, but I think he's a good coach.
Well, they always talked about build a GM versus build a coach and all that, that whole thing. But
Yep.
Hey, Ryan, we really appreciate your call. We always enjoy it. Call again, and we look forward to chatting with you in the next show.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Ryan from Rochester. Always enjoyable chatting with him. So I knew he was going to vote for the Bruins in that question.
Yeah.
Who gagged more? Because he put a rant up on up on social media. I'm like, oh, he's ready to go. And I was interested to see because I said the Celtics. I thought, I wonder what Chris is going to say. But Chris ended up on the same page as us, so that's pretty good. So that's fine. If you want to get in, we still got about 10 minutes to go. 774-762-6234. Appreciate any calls. And, of course, comments on the little comment stream over here. Please type in. Mikey Kahn is on his way to the BBA, so have a great time there tonight. Mikey Kahn, that's a great job that Mr. Burgo is doing over there. A lot of talent coming through his league, and Chris and I end up seeing them at the high school level and everything else locally. So that's great to see. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, good night for it, too. Looks like it's a great night out there.
Yeah.
Personally, I want to say congrats to Brian Rose and Bishop Stang. Got to the semifinals of the state. Nothing wrong with that. Went to Brockton and played in the Brockton Stadium and ended up losing. Had a 4-2 lead, but ended up losing it. Girls tennis at Bishop Stang, undefeated, going in the semifinals themselves too. So let's see how they made out coming up with them. So a couple of good local teams trying to get where they need to be. So that's nice to see, and a lot of good young stars in the area as well.
That's right. He's going to be reffing 4 games tonight. Mike Consaccio is down at the BBA.
Yeah.
So he's really looking forward to that. He says it's all about the kids. And, of course, he does a lot of work down there in Monty's Park. But he then makes another comment on his way out. He says the Celtics, he's making a prediction, the Celtics will not make any major moves in the offseason. What do you think about that?
As long as I see what this roster is going to look like, and it doesn't lose who I think, they shouldn't lose, then I'll be happy. And if they add this and add that, okay. You saw that they've made some changes in their coaching staff. Sam Cassell has joined on for the Boston. So I think they're trying to give Missoula some other guys to kind of pick his brain, and he's going to do that with them and make this team better down the stretch when they need to be in playoff runs.
Mike Consaccio makes another comment. He disagrees with that last rant that I went on. I know I kind of went off course there. Started talking about Bill Belichick. And he says, Paul, I disagree. Tom Brady did not play defense. It takes a defensive effort as well to win. Well, there's no question about that. But, I still say, if you're the greatest coach of all time, okay, you lose the greatest player of all time, quarterback, okay?
Yep.
And then you go, okay, I guess, I don't know, let's throw Cam Newton in there off the scrap heap. What kind of an idiotic decision is that? That's got to be like one of the worst decisions anybody ever made. How can you go from Tom Brady to Cam Newton? It was almost like he's like, well, I'm the greatest coach of all time, so I can just throw anybody in there, quarterback.
Okay, so Paul, who should he have gone get? What would you like to see?
I don't know.
What was there for him to go get? He's sitting there going, there's nothing there for me to go get. So I'm going to play someone who has experience. I'm going to play someone who's been to a Super Bowl. So I'm even going to change my offense for someone to try to say, hey, I got a quarterback compared to, all right, who am I going to take here? Zappy or somebody just to throw them in? I think that's, that's what I'm looking at. Did he have Jimmy G at that time? No. And so, the pieces, I guess, were just not there for him to say, there's somebody that I can actually take or get, free agency or draft, to take the place of Tom. I don't have that in front of me to kind of remember.
But, Kraft will say, hey, we never told Bill he couldn't spend. In the NFL, I don't know that you can buy your way to the Super Bowl, although the Rams kind of did that. They sold off all their picks and filled the holes where you needed to fill them. So there's different ways to get it done, but it doesn't seem like Bill has done anything special. Okay, the Brady era is gone and all that. So you think that, okay, he's going to find a good quarterback. He's going to find a good running game. He's going to try to hang on to a good offensive lineman. He's going to put together a good defensive scheme. He's going to try to get some speed on defense. If you got a good cornerback, try to keep him, try to pay him, He always wants to go, as soon as a guy gets good, he wants to dump him and start from scratch again. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem that that's I'm going to give you success.
Paul, I guess 20 years just wasn't good enough for you guys. You guys won 100 years. You won 1,000 years. You want it until you die. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
No,
20 years is pretty impressive. As a Cowboy fan, I remember the 90s. I'm still looking for it to come back.
Yeah.
And it hasn't come back. Even though, I keep saying this, we're going to get coach, we're going to get this, this player, that player. And you did it for 20 years. That's tremendous. Give the guy some credit. I mean, that's impressive. Nobody else has really done that kind of a run. It's kind of special. You get spoiled and you just keep wanting more and more. Listen, Paul, do me a favor this year. Go to every Patriots game.
They'll be winless.
Exactly and I know exactly what's going to happen. Just go to every game. Tell your son, talk to TD Bank connections. See if they can talk to Gillette connections. Get him over there, and then you can go see him, and you can watch every game.
All right. Let me say a couple things before we go. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. Citywide Glass, 3 locations, 425 State Road in Dartmouth, additional locations in Fall River and Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis and pickleball. And attorney John Seed, good friend of ours, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. And you can go and catch up with him at johnseedlaw.com. By the way, John Seed, the attorney there, has also become quite a coach down there in the South End. He's got his team, and he's got the next generation of Seed. I think he's playing Little League and everything else. So he's going down the old Little League path. Even I did that. I was a coach in the Little League. And that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I spent so much time as an announcer over the years that when I ended up taking a Little League team, I thought, wow, this I know it's only Little League and everything, but there's a lot going on here, that I was trying to learn as I went. And it was a fun experience. I really enjoyed it, but there was a lot to learn and stuff like that. And we tried to do our best. And I got videos on how to be a good coach and all this kind of stuff. The only thing is I got caught up in the competitive juices a little bit, but that's only because the other guys were doing that. You know what I'm saying? So I tried to behave,
Well, hey, listen, for John, that's just great breeding. I mean, John Seed, the father, who's at Bedford High, has been the baseball coach forever over there. Now it translates to the grandson, who's playing down, in the South End. So that's just great to see, or the heritage that's gone on for so many years in New Bedford, and it just continues on.
And by the way, I want to thank Chris Santos for stopping by the Paul Santos live show. That was a lot of fun. We brought Chris up, and he fit right in. He went up there, and that whole show was like a lot of yucking it up and all this kind of stuff. I was saying Chris went up there, and he almost had his own monologue going. He was singing all kind of stuff around. I said, this guy's a natural over here.
Well, we had to get San Francisco and Chubbs. We had to get our guys. We had to get all going, and so that was a lot of fun. It's a great show. If anybody gets a chance to see it, that's 7 to 8 o'clock on Mondays at Mikey D's.
Yeah.
Please go on down and watch the Paul Santos live show. And you never know, might be able to stop in again and we'll talk a little sports.
A little sports segment. Absolutely. And by the way, this Saturday, they called me to fill in on WBSM 1420 AM, 99.5 FM. That's from 10 to 12. And talk about, I do the Santos on Sports, and compared to like the Paul Santos live show, totally different, right? One's like Johnny Carson, Tonight Show, right. This over here, we're talking sports all the time, trying to do the Stephen A. Smith or the Felger thing with our own style, Well, WBSM, that's a whole nother thing. They're always talking politics over there, right? So I go over there and I'm like, I'm kind of centrist, the minute I'm listening there. And I'm thinking, man, people have these strong opinions. And I don't really like to get into these political arguments. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out what can I do with my show that's a little different, But I remember one time I told Chris, right? I say, Chris, I'll tell you what, why don't you call into the show and then we'll talk, So the caller that was on before him was on. And then I hit the button. I said, hey, Chris, how's it going? And Chris says, sounds like you got your hands full over there.
I said, a lot better than you, Paul.
People are calling each other communists and fascists and racists. I'm trying to keep everything under control. When Chris called in to talk sports, he's like, hey, you got your hands full, Santos. I said, I know.
What's the topic this week, Paul?
I don't know. They told me it's Thursday already. So this was Tuesday. So they said, hey, try to find a local. They like it local, which I do too, because, the national stations can talk about the national stuff.
Right.
And there was a lot of national stuff going on. They try to keep it local, see if there's something controversial going on. So they're going to send me some stuff. I got to keep, reading the newspaper. I've been actually listening to some of the other shows to see if anything comes up that I have an opinion about. Okay. And then we take it from there. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. So, hey, might as well do these fun things while I can.
Well, listen, if you want one for Saturday, should Paul Santos go to any more sports Boston games?
Only if I want him to lose, right?
I mean, please call in and let us know what you think.
I'm going to go down and see the Cowboys, but not when they're playing the Patriots. Maybe I could bring that negative karma.
No. We don't need any of you Patriot fans.
I can put a spell on the Cowboys. I don't need to do that because I know they're going to blow it anyway.
Don't show them.
Wasn't it Ryan said that the Celtics were the Cowboys of the NBA? What a left hook that was. Next time he calls, I got to ask him about that. That was a good one.
Don't rev him up.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot for calling in and the kind words that some of you said today. Really appreciate it. We're doing our best to put together a decent product over here. Get a chance for local people to talk sports. They do that in the big city, but locally you don't have that. So we're providing that right here, and we're having a lot of fun. We really appreciate your support.
Hey, thanks, Nelson from Fall River. Thanks, Ryan, once again for calling in, and Mikey Kahn doing his thing too. So all you guys who come, keep watching our show and give us a call anytime you want.
All right, for Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos. Thanks again for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.